Sidonie Bouchet is a French-Australian holistic health practitioner dedicated to guiding and supporting you towards transformation. Her work blends practical expertise with channeled guidance to offer insight and inspiration for inner growth. She holds a bachelor's degree in philosophy as well as in European communications with additional studies in counseling psychology, natural medicine, and reflexology. After working a decade in editorial publishing, she followed her calling as a spiritual counselor and workshop facilitator, embarking on her true soul's mission. From 2000 to 2012, Sidonie brought together Lightworkers for ceremonial performances, including at the renowned Woodford Folk Festival in Australia. As a transformational writer, speaker, and therapist, today Sidonie is the author of a 5-book series called The Lightworker Guide for those called to walk the path of lightwork. The series provides an in-depth exploration into the understanding, awakening, practices, community, and purpose of lightworkers. Sidonie offers spiritual mentoring and healing sessions for those wanting to reconnect with their inner light. You can learn more about her work and contact her at sidoniebouchet.com. Do you ever feel like you're living in an episode of Black Mirror? Like no one truly thinks about the future as long as they can make the most of today. The past, long forgotten, even though it was given to us so we can learn from it. Aren't you tired of sounding like a broken record? Of chasing dreams that are getting you nowhere in life? You want to create positive change on Earth, but you seem to be the only one who cares. Shush now, dreamer. Calm your worries. The New Earth messengers have arrived. We've been here for a while now, actually, patiently waiting for our activation time. And this is it. New Earth On is a podcast about exploring how we can channel higher consciousness into the everyday experiences of Earth so that we can transform our world for the better. And, save the planet. Together, we'll reimagine Earth in a way that allows us to stay connected to our consciousness across every aspect of life. Family, work, society, even our own identity. Your higher self is calling you back home. I hear there's another golden age for us on the other side. If you're ready to embark on a lifelong adventure filled with purpose and joy, let's map out the new Earth together.
In 2000, I was doing some dancing for some sort of festival performance thing. And the director asked me if I would like to join the fire event. And he said, I'd like you to join as a spiritual light worker. And so I was already in healing and did a lot of healing type things. And then so I just went, okay. And he said, right, I trust your energy and your alignment, and I want you to gather light workers for ceremonial performance. And what really I need in these fire events, which was at the end of each year in Australia, is for you to anchor light with your group and to ignite light in other people, which was a great honor to do, but also very difficult to find people who were into that back in the days. That's 25 years ago now. Yeah.
Would you say that the Lightworkers kind of mission has been elevated in those 25 years, or is it still a little bit like a hush hush, those that need to know will know when the time comes, and the rest, they can still be kind of separated from the mystery?
Well, I think that the Lightworker movement wasn't really existent back in the days, to be honest, but there have always been people who work with the light, regardless. But they didn't call themselves Lightworkers at all. A lot of us older Lightworkers, if we want to call them that, have had to deal with lot of darkness. The younger light workers are coming in with a lot more lightness. And this is what I have noticed, because I'm a practitioner and I work with people in sessions. And the younger light workers are so much more connected to the light because they're so recently out of the light. Whereas someone like myself, I have been on earth for an eternity. Like, I have been on earth. I remember my first existence as an amoeba in the water, and I was sent down by my planet, which I believe is the Pleiades. I was sent down to check, to gather information of what Earth was like, to bring back to the Pleiades. And so then I also have remembrances. Everything for me is, my remembrances are very vivid. I've never lost them. Whether it's my early childhood, my past lives, my galactic past, where I'm going after Pleiades, because I'm going elsewhere. And so the next incarnation was during reptilian time. And this is why we call the reptilian brain, because my experience was that I lost my tail being over compassionate to a being that was saying, "Oh, you're eating my leaves." I was a dinosaur instructed to eat leaves for sustenance. And then the tree was crying out of pain. And I know it sounds pretty wacky, but I felt so much empathy for the tree that I lost my tail by being attacked by another type of dinosaur. And that was symbolically my anchoring to earth. And after that, every lifetime, every incarnation was just a real deep problem anchoring on earth. And the traumas, one after the other, because I had started off with that prototype in my system.
The words that you've just used, anchoring, is bringing to mind this idea that we're almost anchoring through the pain. And so, those of us that have the Lightworkers mission or any divine mission, we must experience that pain initially for us to anchor, because that pain allows for the roots to develop, to reconnect with the rest of the soil. For this land that we're walking on, it has seen all the pain, it has felt all the pain. And until we can hear and connect that pain, we cannot really ascend back, because we wouldn't even know what we're supporting, who we're supporting. So, being that middle being, entity, light between the earth and the heavens, in a way, or the skies.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I'd like to add a little to it. That it's also because Lightworkers' mission is one of empathy. And how can we be empathic if we don't fully understand what pain is, what darkness is? And I believe that is one of the reasons why we're here, to experience pain. Another one is we have been sent on Earth to collect information, because Earth is a living library. A lot of people speak of it. It's not my idea. It's a living library. And so we've come here to understand things, and emotions are one of the big things that we need to bring back to our planets. So that also, I believe, is one of the reasons why we do the painful thing.
You heard the tree leaves saying, "Oh, stop, you're hurting me." That's telepathy. You're essentially communicating with the spirit of the trees, of the plants. And I know people are remembering how to do that. They're activating these gifts and they're teaching other people, how to build a relationship with your garden, with the trees in your local park, how to almost
ask them, hey, would you mind sharing some of your wisdom with me so that I know better, so that I can be of service to this community or, to Earth using your access to this library, as you're mentioning? Because
Mm,
we've been talking about Earth as this matrix, which it is. It's just the same thing. It's the living library and the matrix are the exactly same thing because it's all connected to the consciousness. It's our consciousness that allows us to have the telepathy. It's our consciousness that allows us to process this complex information that arrives sometimes at the speed of light, which is why you have these activations, these remembrance, the deja vus. That's the information is traveling so fast that your mind can only comprehend, oh, I've received something, oh, I've remembered something. But actually, it's been a super long and complicated process until you actually receive that. And the beautiful thing is, we also have the ability to send it out. So we can direct our communication to all living things and beings. So all
mm.
the insects that, when we see a spider in the house, when we see a little ant, they're like, oh no, don't. There's something that shouldn't be here. Well, what if they have a message for us? What if we can
Mhm.
send them a message? It changes the way that we communicate.
Yes, it reminds me of I lived in a Buddhist monastery for a while with my children. I have 3 children, and I was volunteering, and one of the jobs I had to do was being in the restaurant. And one day, the table was covered in ants. Now, it was really full. There were people everywhere, and I sort of said to the chef, "Look, I'll wipe down the table to get these people to come in to the restaurant." He said, "Oh no, the table is for the ants at the moment. Do not touch the ants. They're here at the moment, and we honor their life form."
I love the things that you're sharing. I love that you're sharing so many beautiful aspects of your journey, and it almost brings this hint of bittersweetness because I feel like most people are not ready to appreciate life like that. This experience that you've
Mm,
shared about, that you've seen, that you've witnessed, that you've experienced, it's available to all of us. We can each
absolutely.
honor everyone around us and every little being. How long would you think it would take for all of us to get to that point? Because I do feel like what you're explaining and the way that we're talking about this, it really is the ascension process where we get to feel the love for all. There is no longer a separation between my vessel and your vessel, or my vessel and the vessel of somebody who has a different ethnicity or different color of their skin, or they speak a different language. We recognize we've all come from the same source. And I don't mean necessarily from the same planets or from the same background, but rather that we each are connected to that consciousness. We each have that spark of light or soul. And so,
Absolutely. Yeah.
in that way, we're interconnected.
Yeah.
Does it feel possible in the next 100 years to even think about us reaching that as
Well,
a
I think with the new Earth, it's definitely possible. um, I don't know if I will be part of the new Earth because I feel like I'm coming to the end of my contract with Earth, and it's okay. I accept because all I'm here for is to fulfill my mission. And I've been trying to do it from day one as an amoeba and a reptilian, a dinosaur. And each time there's been problems and complications in medieval times. It just keeps going and going. But now I feel like I'm at the point of passing the baton to the next generation of light workers. And I guess my type of light worker is like a very old machine that is sturdy, but not refined like the new light workers are coming in very refined. And it's it's really beautiful to see, and also beautiful to be able to just go, I've done all I can. I don't have to keep being the leader or the one who's, holding on to everything. It's like just giving it, just passing the baton. And I really like that, actually. It's quite liberating to, if you know what I'm saying.
I do. I mean, unfortunately, I do. I do want to say that it almost feels like a spiritual war, and it feels like the battles that we have to go through as part of this mission Because you can choose not to participate. That's the thing. You can choose to be a light worker. You can say, do you know what? I can hear the call of the universe or the divine asking me to step up my game and become this vessel that can channel all of these codes and blueprints and be the one that uplifts people. I know people that have given up on that because it's a responsibility.
It's
And
hard.
so you feel a lot of judgment, you feel a lot of hatred, you feel a lot of darkness and negativity, and you don't necessarily have someone that you can confide in at times. You don't necessarily feel like you have someone to pass on that so that they can hold that burden for a while because you volunteered to collect that from others. And the only thing that you can do is alchemize it, transform it into something new, create something new, or send it back to source, or send it back to your star family and they can process it. But you are bringing this beautiful word here that we're collecting the data, we're researchers. And so sometimes we're not necessarily brought into these environments so that we can resolve the conflict or fix them, but rather to observe so that we understand what are the new coordinates, where are we exactly right now in the status quo, so we can send that data back to our spirit teams, the ones that are supporting us, and ask them, this is the current situation. Maybe you send me here 20, maybe you send the information about this mission 20 years ago. I am now here. Finally, I've made it, but things have changed in 20 years. So give me a revised plan, give me an updated plan. But it is a responsibility. It's more than just calling yourself a light worker and saying love and light and just chanting and
And
dancing.
there are so many,
Yeah.
so many. Yeah, we don't even have to go there. I think one of the really interesting things is when I was in the Pleiades, I remember being asked, well, a whole group of us were being asked, okay, there's a special mission on Earth. Who wants to go down on Earth and bring light? And I remember being so enthusiastic, but unfortunately what I didn't realize was the density of Earth and how damn heavy it is, the density of darkness. And that is something I think a lot of light workers didn't realize when they put their hand up. And some of the light workers put their hands up to go down with their twin flames. Well, I didn't. I chose to. I was like, oh no, I know what it's like to love you. I know what it's like to connect with you. I don't need to have that experience on Earth. Oh my God, what a fool I was to say.
Well, that has its challenges because I am on a twin flame journey and I've had multiple twin flame partners to activate me or to help me in my remembrance journey, but I haven't actually established that union because of the complications that come from the twin flame journey when one person is still enmeshed into the 3D or karmic patterns and the other one is kind of progressing with their mission. So there is this idea, at least from my understanding, that you're not here to lead with your twin flame as the focus, but rather lead with your mission, so that when you're uplifting yourself energetically, you're uplifting the other person. So even those that have volunteered to, I suppose, experience love within the density, love is not the mission when it comes to just one
No,
person. It's love for all. And I feel like this is also where some of the light workers get lost, or some of the people that have higher callings. They think, oh, I've recognized my person. I must establish that union. They must call me. I must call that obsession that comes at the level of, I need to be complete, without realizing that they're already whole
yeah,
as they are.
yeah. I probably didn't explain myself correctly in the twin flame thing because I have met my twin flame. But energetically, it just doesn't work. It's a mess, a total mess. But when I look in his eyes, I see eternity. I know without, I don't have to say anything. Information, it's like we're talking without having to say a thing. But he's on his journey and I'm on my journey. We're in different parts of the globe anyway, on the globe, so it doesn't really matter. But it's very interesting that, yes, as you were saying, yes, this focus on twin flame, it depends also on our ages, I think. Like, I'm a more mature person now. Like, I'm a lot older than you. And at your age, it was still very strong in me. There was that driving force. Whereas now, a lot of my sexuality and not that I'm totally asexual, but my sexuality has transformed into creativity. And now I'm driven by creativity over anything else, because I know that eventually I will. My twin flame is my twin flame. It's no one else's, ultimately. So he can have as many experiences as he wants. I'm busy doing my mission. So we'll see you somewhere else in the next plane.
I understand that, and it's one of those revelations, I suppose, that you experience when you meet someone that you can recognize at a soul level. You recognize that the love that you feel for them, it's eternal. It's a love that's never going to go away. It doesn't matter if this person, does something extremely awful, because you recognize they're in the density. They've been swallowed by the density. They're not acting from their soul. They're acting from the humanness in them. And the humanness is not as evolved, is not as ascended in most cases, especially when you get into the entrapment of certain cycles and patterns that just seem to get worse every single day. You can't seem to do anything right. And so in those days, this is when the power of light workers in society comes to the surface, as they are channeling these messages of guidance. And sometimes the messages are extremely random because they contain symbolism. They contain certain keywords, certain phrases that are gonna support you in your awakening. And it is precisely then that light workers should trust themselves, their higher self, the most, but also when humans should trust if something resonates with them, it must mean something. Maybe down the line, maybe not today, maybe tomorrow, but they should collect that key and be like, okay, now this is available. If this comes up on my journey, I'll know that's what it means. How do you advise people to approach channeling if they recognize themselves as light workers, or people that are now being introduced into the world of light workers and they're receiving these messages and they're doubting the validity of channeled messages and channeling as a concept?
So yes, you definitely have to be very strong, strong to follow the messages that you hear. But sometimes it's that you see that when you don't follow it, when you don't follow your gut feeling, or when you don't follow your those messages, how disastrous your journey becomes. And you might have to live that quite a few times until you realize, I'm going to listen to that voice. And then listening to that voice, and I experienced that with the first book I wrote, where it was really channeled. It was my story. I put myself out there in totality, and I was ripped to bits. I was treated like a madwoman. It was a nightmare. I ended up taking the book off Amazon. I didn't want any more of it. And I really went into a period of just coming back to myself, where I was listening to the voices, but I was living my life with those voices without external validation or external, other than with my patient clients. I call them patient clients because I'm not supposed to call them patients, but they are almost like that. Yeah. So when you're channeling, I think, first of all, you need to be a clear channel. A lot of people, and I have no judgment here, but a lot of people channel, but they're on drugs. And yeah, sure, you can see stuff. I have tried drugs, so I'm not Miss Purity myself, but I have also realize that you get false entities coming through. You have false information that appears true. So you need to be really careful with that. So I would urge anyone on drugs to not trust their channeling, because and to only channel when there really are clear conduits, because that is really important. Secondly, when you're getting the information, I think you need to feel it and see where it's coming from. Is it coming from some unhealed part of myself, some trauma that I haven't resolved? Or is it actually, and if it's coming from trauma or an unresolved part, what is it trying to tell me? Because sometimes it won't be coming through as clearly as if it's clean conduit stuff. So that's another thing you have to look out for. So there's the drugs, and and then there's also the traumas. And I've experienced both of those, where I'm hearing messages, but the messages aren't really that clear because I have my filters on top of those messages and I'm interpreting them incorrectly. So that's another really important thing to check out for. Okay, say that you haven't got those two things going on and that you get a message. Well, then really you are just letting that energy come through your crown most of the time. Beware of coming through the third eye, because once it comes through the third eye, you start interpreting and messing around with it. So it is better as a light worker to really let the energy come through your crown and to come right down your body into the earth, so that you actually are really embodying the whole message rather than just coming through your head or even from your heart, because your heart, light workers, are so loving. And, I speak from experience as well, that we don't mind being trampled on. We don't mind letting other people hurt us. Well, no, we do actually. And now is the time for light workers to actually honour themselves and their light sufficiently to go, no, I deserve to be honoured and respected. And that's another really important thing. So I would suggest really letting that energy really go through the whole body into earth. And then if you want to interpret it, but most of the time you don't have to. You don't have to interpret something. It can just come through. And your presence, because it's really not a performance. I mean, I have had times in channeling where I became other beings. So my whole face would change, my whole persona. I would become the person I was incarnating without any choice of my own. Most of the time it was just using me as a vessel, and I became very broken and I had a lot of health issues because of that. So we really have to be very mindful of what energy we're letting in. So source, allowing it to come through your crown and then coming into your whole body before you start responding or reacting, because you go in your head and you start thinking about it. Well, it stops there. Or you're in your heart and you start loving everyone and trying to help everyone, and it stops there. Let it really come through your whole body.
And there is one important chakra that you missed out on, even though it's already included, because the throat chakra, which is where we channel almost in real time, or rather we alchemize in real time, because we're receiving, we're understanding, we're passing it through the heart. And if something needs to be adjusted, sometimes I would even find myself say 2 words at the same time. I'm like, oh, I'm not, let me see which one actually wants to come through, which one suits this message better. Because sometimes you too can be the director of this message, the editor of the message. Once you master that connection that you have with spirit, with source, with your spirit guides, with your star family, with different star families, doesn't have to be even your own. When you proclaim yourself ready to be of service, you will receive the message that needs to be delivered where you are. but then you have the opportunity to take an extra moment before you speak out loud what you've received in a way where you enhance how other people deliver it. You enhance the experience for them. For example, if you are in a room with a lot of religious people, you know to tone it down or edit it a little bit so that it doesn't collide, but rather it's an open message for interpretation. If you have scientific people, the resistance will be different, but equal,
Mm,
because they are coming with their preconceived notions of how the world should be, and then you're channeling this information that seems to contradict what they believe. So you have to again work with some of their beliefs. And so this is where the weight of the channeling increases a little bit, because as the channeler, as the one that's holding the messages, you have to know your audience, which is,
mm,
I suppose, if you've had the chance to experience marketing on your journey, which I have, and now I understand probably why, you also think about how you're delivering these messages, and not in a way where you lie, which is probably one of the core principles of marketing to enhance what you're selling, but rather to honor your audience as an equal part of the equation, because the messages are coming from a place where we cannot see or hear. I mean, the average person, the everyday person, the messengers can sometimes hear and see things vividly. Sometimes they just hear, sometimes they just see. So you have to translate this information and pass it on to others, which have an assignment related to those messages. So you're helping people
mm,
by trusting your voice, by using your voice. And it's not about just saying love and light. You have to set boundaries. You have to know your energetic boundaries. What you mentioned about the drugs, number one, I would say for anyone that is feeling the call of the universe. Again, I think this all always initiates this light workers experience, this spiritual awakening. It always initiates with a call, whether you hear it from your own higher self, from your inner child, from, a soul family. You hear that call. Hey, do you want more? Are you ready for more? Do you want to be of service? It's that inner calling, is that inner invitation. One of the best places to start is to clean your vessel, your diet, your habits, your coping mechanisms, your coping skills. I stopped drinking early on, and I also cleaned my diet, and I started to learn about the herbs. I started learning about how different foods affect my body and the chakra system. This was kind of my initial onboarding, and I was just trusting the guidance that was coming from everywhere. And then the trauma healing came into the picture long before I was channeling, long before this was even an idea that I would one day be doing that. I was just following the steps of my unfolding journey. And then at some point of this adventure, I realized that I had cleared what you mentioned as the filter. So I was no longer filtering information through my own trauma. And even if there was a little bit left here and there, I would understand right away where exactly does it stink, where exactly in my heart there's a wound, so that I disconnect the message from my own wound and I deliver the message, and then I return back to my home, or I return back to my room or my sacred space, and I investigate that wound, because that wound, that is my work. But the message, it impacts more people than just myself. Would you say that the channeled messages are instructions? Or would you say they're guidance? And so we still have our free will and a number of choices regardless of the message? Or is it always that we receive what we need to receive? And then if we decide, I'm not ready for this, nah, this feels too easy, so there is the doubt, we are kind of doomed to repeat the cycle a little bit longer.
mm. Before I answer to that, I really want to say to the viewers today that if you are taking drugs, there's no judgment. It's your path, and you're doing that, and you will do it over and over again until it no longer serves you. And it's okay. I have no judgment of being like, oh, wow, I'm so above it all. It's nothing like that. It really is that if you really want to be an effective light worker, you will need to, at some stage, give up the drugs. That's all. Yeah. Okay. So we were talking about channeling again. Well, we've been talking about channeling a lot. What was the first question?
Should people kind of, when we're receiving
Oh, yeah.
channeled messages as the audience, I suppose more so than the channeler, but even so, the channelers, sometimes we receive channeled messages for us as well. Should we think of them as instructions, almost as that guidance that comes, that supports us on our journey? Or is it just information that we can hear and then ignore? Like, does it impact our immediate life? Or I know it's meant to help us, but sometimes I feel like we still have a choice as to how our life plays out. So let's say that the guidance comes and says, do you know what? There's an opportunity that's going to be presented on your path, but it might not be the best one if you're willing to wait. But then you can exert your free will and take that opportunity and see what happens. And then once the next opportunity comes along, you'll be like, that message told me that opportunity is not going to be as good as the second one, but I was stubborn and I wanted to try it out.
So free will. That's the poisonous gift in some ways, because yes, it means we can do what we want, but at the same time, I just speak about myself, my experience and what's happening for me. For me, I prefer to align my will to the divine will and to stick with that, because my free will gets me into way too many problems and real headspace stuff that I really don't need. And so yes, we have free will, but for me, I look at it as a bit of a poisonous gift. I probably will evolve out of that maybe one day. I do really believe freedom, on the other hand, is the ultimate. I actually see it as more ultimate than love, which everyone talks about as love being the main thing. But if we give freedom to everyone, we are actually coming from love. And I do really believe freedom is really important. So there's a bit this thing of not liking free will, but liking freedom. In regards to instructions, yes, they are instructions. Well, from my personal experience, they are instructions. I can give you an example of one time when a person came off the street to see me, and he was in tie and a suit. And during the session, like, he came for some reflexology. During the session, I was doing his feet, and then I'm hearing this message saying, "You've got to tell him he's a Pleiadian commander." I was like, oh no! Like, I was having this debate with the what I was chanting, and it was like, no way! Do you see this guy? He's straight as. All session, you've got to tell him he's a Pleiadian commander. And I ended up saying, look, I don't know how you'll take this message, but I'm being told to tell you that you're a Pleiadian commander. And his response was, yeah, I know that. All this time I had been going, oh no, please, no, I'm going to be treated like a mad woman again. And when he said, yeah, I know that. So I think you have to, I think that when you become strong enough to you can discern, but discernment is tricky as well, because what is making you discern something? Are you using your mind? And in that case, if you're using your mind, is that a good thing? Or are you filtering the information? Or do you just become a conduit? And it's sort of like, it's a tricky question to answer, because you do see, like, I lived in communities and intentional communities where you saw all sorts of people, very new earth people. Actually, they were living the new earth. I feel like I was living the new earth 20, 30 years ago, and now I'm not living the new earth as much as I was back then. But you saw these other people who were conduits of light, but that had taken it to such an extreme that they were just misfits in society. But those misfits are like when you think of Jesus, you know, he was regarded as a misfit. So was Buddha. He had a begging bowl with him. Like he was typical of the misfit. But the Messiah complex, you have to be very careful about that as well, of not having that imitating the Messiah when that might not necessarily be your role as well.
That's true, because we each have a different role in society, and it's going to involve a unique blend of skills and talents and even new activations, something that you've never had before in your journey. Suddenly, it's now part of your toolkit because it's important for people to see you blend two different things. I remember early on in my journey, I was guided towards tarot and oracle cards, and my first instinct was like, but people are going to judge me. Like, I know what people say about those people, and I'm not opposed to it. I understand the art. I understand the creativity. My God, how much creativity there is in tarot and in oracle cards, the images, the illustrators. It's such a creative space, but there is judgment attached to it. And my guidance was like, nope, this is part of your instructions. You have to do it. So, okay. Then more biblical themes start to come through. And I was like, I can't be blending tarot, oracles, and biblical things. People are going to judge me. It's like, nope, you have to do it. Let them judge you. It's part of what people need to see somebody do, merge these two worlds. And I feel like in my journey, I've blended a lot of different things really fast, and I feel like it's only going to increase this fusion of no more separating politics and education or science and spirituality, but rather understanding that it's all coming from the same place. And if two things are divided, that means there's room for more division, and we need to unite our understanding. And so when we're putting things into boxes and saying that's not my job, I shouldn't be tasked with understanding that, actually everyone's impacted by your lack of participation. We've seen that even in practical terms. We've seen people get less engaged with politics because they're like, my vote doesn't matter anyway. That shouldn't be the case, especially young people. They should have a voice, they should have a vote. But we're not going to be talking about politics because that's a whole another topic.
Well, I think that the best way, if you want to get involved in politics as a light worker, is actually to amp up the light and to activate as many people in the light movement. And that is a political movement in itself.
Yes, in some ways it is. Yeah. And what's coming to mind is, the misfits, they're part of the journey. Like even you becoming a misfit, that's part of your own journey of ascension, because the moment you separate from the pack, from your previous friends, you're going to be the misfit. The moment you start hearing, the moment you start practicing your discernment, you're going to be the misfit because you're not fitting in, which is by definition, you're the misfit. But usually sometimes go so much to the extreme version of that misfit that they reject community. They reject trying to share their messages in a way where
you're a
they actually
misfit
people.
and you can't do your job.
To the extreme. Yes, I agree.
Then you sort of you're not bringing in light. You're not doing anything. You're just being a misfit. I mean, we've got a lot of misfits in the world at the moment, actually, who aren't really misfits with a purpose. They're just people who are just floating around, taking up space.
Misfits without purpose. I think this is the element. It's not to say that they're wrong for their opinions, for their understanding.
It's all their choice.
But we also get, on the other end of that extremity, the people that have always been supported because they fit in so well. The golden children of society, that they've never been judged because they're so perfect. These roles, but they've never been questioned to the point necessary for them to actually witness their own shadows and befriend that shadow and understand that the light that emanates from them is so much stronger than that shadow, because they've always had to fit in a different way. Still fitting in.
Chosen. They haven't had to. They've chosen. They've chosen the path of least depth, not as deep. They've chosen to live superficially likable rather than deeply not liked.
But they also experience a huge gap between themselves and the mask they're wearing, because the older they become, the more people try to reduce their space for growth, because they were like, oh, when you were 20, you were this. When you were 30, like, you should be progressing in this small little tiny pond. And if you say something wrong, then you see the wrath of the people around you. How dare you challenge that? How you dare you say that? I thought you were one of the good ones almost. So I think they too experience the judgment, but they experience it in different ways, maybe in lesser capacity because of how well they fit in visually speaking, or how well they just seem to have it all. But the battle that's happening inside of them, I think at some point they crack too, and they have a choice then to go on to that redemption hero's journey to fully embrace their, awakening, and then
And they let
come
go
back to
of
the middle.
their perfection.
Absolutely. And the masking, it's masking again. I think even the misfit is masking something. They're masking that disappointment that the system abandoned them, that, their guides led them to this path and suddenly they were rejected by society. I think it comes back to the trauma healing, as you were mentioning. There are certain wounds that we each have. It's necessary for us to collect some of those wounds, or for us to process some of those wounds. They're collective wounds, some of them. So those that are strong enough to process their own wounds, but then also take up some of the wounds around them and then process them, they become, like the little Buddha in the community. But I am brought to another kind of expression of this journey, as we were talking about people getting lost a little bit in the spiritual journey. Would you say that people can get so lost into the light, love, and positivity that their messages are ineffective anymore, where they just want to add more positivity and it's okay, don't worry about it, it's going to be fine, we're going to be taken care of, but they remove the accountability altogether? They just,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Those people have been really counterproductive to the Lightworker movement, actually. Yeah. Because it's not about being positive all the time. It's about being authentic. Authenticity is so important. Being real is so important. It's about being kind and empathic with people around you, but it's not about telling them crap, like telling them something that's not the reality, telling them to be positive. Make it, because telling someone to be positive when they're not in a positive space is actually quite detrimental to a person who's in a very low space, and you're telling them to just chin up, come on, but be all happy. That's not going to help. There was all that movement many years ago with The Secret, and it's all in your manifesting, and it really seemed to bypass anything about trauma. Trauma is, like, people have trauma, they can't just be positive and heal. It doesn't work like that. There's a lot of I see a lot of things on social media. It's very, we're going into the new world, and there's all these predictions of when it's happening and what time. And today I saw a post, for example, the last 144,000 person is now consolidated in or something like that, and now that's it. Bad luck if you weren't one of the 144,000, which is a very, very small amount of people. So then you're up there in the 144,000. And what about everyone else? They might as well give up. They might as well just be misfits or problems in society, because they've missed out. So being light all the time is not necessarily proclaiming to be light and positivity all the time is not necessarily great. And there are times when we go through the dark night of the soul. I just am coming out of a very long period of dark night of the soul. And when we're in that, it's a bit like a seed growing in the earth, and it's starting to not blossom. It's starting to grow, but you can't see anything. Well, that's what's happening in the dark night of the souls for people, where actually a lot of growth is happening, but it's not apparent. It's not showing at the time.
The Secret is, I would say it's a powerful book, regardless of, the
It's
backlash,
good.
regardless of, how people are misinterpreting some of the teachings. And I've personally given it as a gift to somebody who's going through a lot of health issues, because I can see that their fate is sometimes kind of dying. And I think through that process, their health is worsening. And so I believe that the power of positivity is also connected to the fate, that there is a force that is stronger than us, that there is a light stronger than us, and it's equipping us in the moments when we get tired, in the moments when we get discouraged or defeated. And so I believe in the power of positive thinking, but my understanding of it has shifted drastically after I went on my personal healing journey and the spiritual awakening, and I had to pick myself up on my own. Never on my own, because I had all these spiritual beings that
Oh,
were
yeah.
supporting me,
Yeah,
giving
me
me guidance, but physically I was alone. And I understand the value of it. And I understand my strength because I had to experience it that way. But I also understand that when you're going through your healing, it's not necessarily designed for two, it's designed for you. And so you have to sit with your own pain for a couple of days, weeks, months, and then go through it and befriend yourself. And so I think people sometimes they want to bypass that healing process by speaking to friends all the time or hiring specialists to, almost give them the cheat codes. And it's like, there are no cheat codes. It's
No.
you and you. You have to sit
Yeah.
with yourself. You have to sit with previous versions of yourself, alternative versions of yourself, future versions of yourself. There is, your journey is happening at the speed at which you've kind of asked for it to be. You can speed it up, but that's going to overwhelm your nervous system. So you're not behind in life, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. But if you're ignoring the heavy emotions and applying the positive thinking on top, one day you're going to collapse. Which is kind of what happened to me because I kept trying to power through being positive. I can do it, I can do it. And then at some point I was like,
Yeah.
oh, nobody's checking on me. I need to check on myself. Okay,
Yeah.
here we go.
Now, The Secret, is great, but it's not the only law. And that's where, I was, in around when the book came out. And everyone in my circle of spirituality was all talking about it. And it's just one law, the law of attraction. There are so many other laws. People seem to have forgotten at that point that there were any other laws. They only believed in that. Another one was also people were utilizing The Secret to try to attract money and really superficial things and not the vitals. So that's what I meant about The Secret. So it's not actually a bad book. I think it's a good book too, but it's not the end all and be all. It was treated like that at the time. It was all about attraction. People didn't see beyond attraction, the law.
It still is, unfortunately, and I can see it. I can see new platforms being created where they just try to sell you these courses about manifestation. And I've received just one message that I can clearly think about right now. It was the only way for you to truly manifest is to manifest something that allows your inner child to shine through with your creativity, with your gifts, whatever that inner given knowledge or wisdom or gift, a set of gifts that you have that you're here to unlock and activate, and also something that supports you in being a light worker, a positive change maker, a positive leader to benefit humanity. That's the only way that you're manifesting. Everything else is manipulation, energetic manipulation, and it's not manifestation. So even the way that people have hijacked the word manifest, because I think it's also in biblical text, the word manifest, but they've taken it out of context. They've added the 3D identification, and now you see all of these people having on their vision board the cars and
they always had that. The vision board's full of physical material things and nothing else.
Exactly. The vision board in itself is a
It's great.
beautiful thing,
Yeah,
but you should have something like more magical, more creative, more aspiring,
that's it. Yeah,
I think in my vision board, I have like spiritual images. I have this
yeah, that's
impact that you cannot
same.
really
I did
put.
it years ago, but yeah, same.
Humans have so much to learn, and those that are, brave enough to complete their ascension journey, I think we're seeing more and more people that are not willing to give up the rights to their calling, the rights to their soul, in a way, the rights to their free will, in order for them to be elevated. Because I think this is what we've seen in society. We've seen a lot of spiritual teachers that suddenly became really popular, really famous. Their books were everywhere, their courses were everywhere, but they sold their freedom.
They
And
sold
I
their
can see
soul.
how they're being pushed into our faces, but they're not actually teaching us how to ascend, how to awaken. They're not actually teaching us about the universal laws, how to activate our gifts, what's out there. They're just spending time with celebrities and pretending that
Mm.
they're part of the conversation that directs schools and government and so on and so on. And in the worst cases, we're also seeing a lot of dark energy and dark magician wizards. I don't know what the
Oh,
right word is in
yeah,
this case.
with the woke
But
movement and all that.
not necessarily. It's quite literally people that do rituals that are not necessarily positive in their nature, but rather sacrificial in their nature. And these people with really dark energy are being invited into the conversation around how to shape the future of humanity when it comes to even childhood, even like the
Mm,
education system, which is insane. I mean,
mm,
uh, under the disguise of performative art. I'm not going to name names. I'm just,
yeah,
pointing people if they spot it for them to recognize it, because I think everyone has discernment. I think some people are scared of their discernment. And so they pretend not to see things because they're so used to being gaslit. And so when they see a truth teller, that usually triggers them. That usually sets off their fire. They're in a fire and they're like, oh, no, no, that person is the bad one. And then they realize, oh, they were actually telling the truth. They were trying to help me. They were trying to guide me. And so we're back to this idea of the role of light workers in society, and them not only channeling these messages of uplifting value, but also channeling some of the prophetic, or rather channeling messages of prophetic nature, and guiding us as we're shaping the new earth. You mentioned there are some people that have been saying the earth's going to end, or the earth's already split. If
mm.
you've saved yourself, now is the time. If you've not saved yourself, it's the
Bad
end.
luck. Yeah,
Yeah.
you missed the boat. Like, I mean, why bother? Of course, you're just going to go and get drugged out, and if you've missed the boat of ascension, and and that's another, that spiritual superiority thing that really, that hierarchy, that won't be in the new world because it's all about co-creation rather than being above, being being the leader who's leading their lambs. That's not how it is. It definitely will be that there will be people at the frontliners, or people who inspire, because some people don't want to do that job as well. That's the reality. So yeah, those people will do it. The thing that has just come to my mind while we've been talking has been my remembrance of Atlantean time, which to me is very, very similar to right now. Very similar. The light workers were very strong during Atlantean time, and I remember being part of a group of light workers where we were anchoring light. And then the persecution came in, which also happened in the medieval time, which has happened even now, happens now even. So that has been a thing with the Atlantean time. They also had a lot of very elaborate technology, which all just totally destroyed itself during the time. So people who remember that may have some apprehension. Like, I mean, I remember being tortured to death during Atlantean times. So for me, reliving this, I'm not so worried about being tortured to death anymore, because it's just the body in a way. And my soul, I mean, during Atlantean times, they actually tried to cut, and I've worked with a lot of people who have got cuts energetically, trying to cut their soul out of them, but you can't capture the soul. But AI used incorrectly is doing a little bit that sort of thing as well, of trying to capture the soul of people.
It's the disconnect. The more you can disconnect somebody from their own consciousnness, that's
That's
essentially capturing the soul. And it's happened to me once in my lifetime, this lifetime, where I lost my connection to my soul. Because one day I woke up and I didn't remember that I was even disconnected from myself until like 5 years passed, and I was like, wait a minute, it's too quiet. I've lost the inspiration. I've lost the ideas. So somebody disconnected me. I don't think it was me. I think maybe it was allowed for this attack on me to happen, but I was disconnected. And I had to distance myself from everybody that was associated to me in that period of time, and to return back to my origins, to spend a lot of time in isolation for me to call back all the remnants, all the pieces.
Yeah.
And in the process, all the gifts that I had returned. I actually didn't have an awareness of my gifts when I was a child. Now I understand that I had them, I suppressed them. But now that I have them and I have the awareness, it feels like I've just become the richest person on earth. Like, not in terms of like material abundance, but just this knowing that I know who I am, which is something that many people spend their whole lifetime lacking, that awareness of who am I. And I've also regained some of that past life knowledge, some of the past life remembrance. And the Atlantean times are not the times that I connect to the strongest. It's
Are
the
you more
Lemurian.
Lemurian?
Yes, these are the times that I connect
Well,
to the
my experience has been, because I work with people from all sorts of constellations, I don't have a Lemurian past at all, but I have worked with Lemurian people. They have it's a much nicer energy than the Atlantean time. More magical, more peaceful. Atlantis, when we first arrived in Atlantis, was beautiful, so beautiful. It was like the same as Egyptian in its heydays, where everything was really so clear conduit stuff. That's what Atlantis was like initially. It was so beautiful, but just turned to mayhem.
Yeah.
Lemuria didn't sound like it did.
I almost feel like it's still there, almost like sealed in a protective bubble, because one of the memories that I've seen come back to me was like almost like this whole tribe of Lemurian family, my family, kind of sending me away, and I'm kind of waving at them, knowing that I'm not going to be back for a very long time. And I travel back through all the different lifetimes, and I see some of them. There have been like generational curses that I can almost see that I've had lifetime after lifetime where I almost agreed, yeah, that's fine. I'm going to do 7 lifetimes of just the same thing. I'm happy to volunteer and do this. That's fine. I'll do it. But when it comes to Atlantis, there is just this warrior that comes through. And it's not a life that I think we should aspire to go back to, because it's still a life that oppresses the nervous system. It's a life where we have to protect and defend. It's not a life where we're open, where we're just flowing openly.
It was really for the light workers who were there, for those who dare to tread where no one else dares. It was like a bit war zone, but the beauty of Atlantis initially was just so beautiful, and it just deteriorated a bit, like what has happened on Earth as well, where Earth started off so beautiful. Like when I was an amoeba, it was very harmonious and very nice energetically. But then by the time it got to reptilian time, it was already starting to disintegrate quite rapidly, so, and that's why we talk about the reptilian brain, like of that fear that we had during that reptilian time. So, Yeah, Lemuria sounds lovely. All the people I have worked with in past lives with their in consultation, but during past lives with their Lemurian past have always had it's lovely. I mean, I see it as I'm working with them, and it's very flowers and mythical and mystical, and it's very beautiful and a lot of light. Atlantis ended up being major tortures, major horror.
Dystopian.
Yeah.
One of the last detours or points I want to make in our conversation, as we've talked about the role of light workers in particular when it comes to like grounding these energetic blueprints, grounding in society, and allowing for this spiritual knowledge to flow through them and then to the people so that other people can start activating and do the same thing. They've been channeling messages from other realms, from other times, from the past, from guides, from people that are no longer here, souls that are no longer here, from our ancestors. What is the validity when it comes to them actually channeling prophecies and messages from the future? Which is, I think, sometimes we are a little bit dubious when it comes to people saying, I've seen the future, this is what it looks like. And I know that sometimes light workers in particular have these prophetic dreams, have these prophetic messages. It's happened to me as well. And I know that sometimes it's just for us, but sometimes we're tasked with sharing these messages with the world. And obviously there's going to be some judgment, some curiosity, some doubt. But what would you advise people that are witnessing people around them channeling these prophetic messages, or for the light workers that are starting to receive them and doubting them because they're strong, the messages can arrive very vividly, but they can be a little bit also confused as to their responsibility. Do they share them? How do they share them? What's the best way to share them?
Now, prophetic, the prophetic for me has always been a little worrisome, because it's like we're on a road and we can go either left or right. If we go left, this will happen. If we go right, this will happen. And so when someone has a prophetic dream, yes, it can guide you. In dreams, I have had prophetic dreams, and yes, it does guide you. But to tell people this is what's going to happen, they have free will of the left or the right or going straight ahead. And so unless you're going to give them all the different options that could happen at that given moment, you can't really tell them or influence them in one particular way. That's how I see it. But my influence is also, I have a mother who read tarot cards and who could read crystal balls as well. And I found that what she would tell me, then I would then totally interfere with my path of life as well. So there could be there could be some personal stuff in there, which I'm just being very transparent about. Yeah. But I think that being prophetic, you have to be careful of what you're guiding. There's an added responsibility in a way, because you're telling them to do something that not necessarily they would do from their own free will. This is where this free will thing comes in again. How do you see it?
I'm asking this as somebody that's kind of starting to receive some prophecies in a way for the new word, and I'm trying to find the best way to share them. And I understand that they're not prophecies that say in 2032 something's going to happen, but rather this is projected to happen to allow us to achieve this X, Y, and Z. So the way that even I'm receiving this information, I'm almost like having this open conversation when I ask for more instructions or ask, can I actually say it like that? is there a way for me not to be extremely specific? Because I understand that there isn't just one version of the future. There's
That's
never going to
it.
be just one
That's
version
it.
of the future.
Yeah.
However, I understand also that there is almost a prophecy on everyone's life. And whether that's a prophecy around their awakening, whether that's a prophecy around their love life, whether that's their prophecy around um, something they're going to achieve. And the best way that I've seen it illustrated, it was in Harry Potter when they were trying to find the prophecy for Harry's Harry's fate and how he can defeat the darkness. I can almost tell that there's so much obstruction on Earth right now and so much control that the people that are currently in the positions where they can exert their control and control the masses, they almost have access to that, and they've abused their powers.
Mhm.
And so I would encourage people that are receiving the guided messages, the channeled messages, to just share them. Don't spend too much time analyzing. Don't spend too much time fighting these messages or trying to reason with them. Simply say, this is what I heard. I want to share it. It might mean something to you, even if it confuses me, especially if you feel like it's important. My experience on Earth, consistently in my life, but also seeing people around me, is that there has been a war on our voices, a war on our authenticity, and we've been so suppressed to the point where we have to spend years unblocking our chakras, unblocking our ability to share who we are. And so if you can power through it and share that which is coming through to you, you're going to expand your own auric field, your energetic field, and you're going to receive more clarity even around what you're trying to channel into the world, because there is a reason you're experiencing this. It might not be as strong at the beginning. You might feel like a complete beginner or like a fool, but over time you're going to get better at understanding what it all means, and all this symbolism is going to start to make sense to you. And maybe the prophets of the new earth are going to be ordinary people that just one day started to receive these clues. They're not going to be the daughters and sons of witches or the daughters and sons of priests, the two extreme ends. They're not going to be the futurists that have grown up around scientists who have been mapping out the data and finding out the patterns. It's going to be the ordinary people that have the purest hearts. And so if you start receiving this information, maybe it's because your heart is pure, and you're going to channel it in the same way that it arrived to you, without an agenda.
I think the key, what you said there, was possible world, the possibility. But, I did 4 years of philosophy at university, and I did a whole subject on possible worlds. There was a guy, David Lewis, who wrote a book called Possible Worlds, and it was, quite unusual in the philosophical realm to be anything that was conceived was possible, and so could happen. And so that's where what you're saying with the prophecies is that it could happen. But how do you deliver that? Deliver what you're tuning into, the frequency of possibility, to speaking it out when no one else is seeing it. How do you do that with credibility? Yeah, you need to be somewhat credible, but also with your staying in alignment with source. So probably what I would recommend for people who do have prophetic messages coming through would be to really, once again, really become a clear channel of source in that case.
I think there's diplomacy involved. You have to be very diplomatic. And I think this is where I've also seen some people really fail at their assignments, because they think it's their personal mission to call justice upon a particular individual and call out people. And I think the purpose of these messages, or the guidance or the instructions, is for us to illuminate new ways of being and new ways of doing and new ways of understanding. It's not to say that person is wrong, we should remove them from the community right away, but rather illuminate the way for others to understand what's right and what's wrong in a way, or that there is a better way, that there is a higher way, and they're going to see with their own eyes, and they're going to hear with their own ears that this person is probably lying, or this person is doing something that, you know, they've been pretending to do, but actually they're doing something else. I think our personal experiences are always going to be important when we're telling stories.
I think so. Storytelling, I've heard you speak of storytelling before, and I think storytelling in prophecy is a good way, because you're not up there saying, I know it and I'm telling you this. You know, you're not being Nostradamus and predicting, you know, things, and hopefully the prophecies aren't all doom and gloom like Nostradamus.
No. I think what I'm trying to speak about when it comes to the prophecies is rather the advancement of our consciousness, or how much we can integrate, and that if I know how much my life has transformed because of the work that I've done, and I continue to hold that frequency and empower other people, and I know that other people are doing that as well, then it's only a matter of time before we reach a majority of people on earth that have ascended to that particular level, so that their discernment is on point. So when they see someone that's trying to be manipulative, somebody that's trying to use their resources to do bad, they're going to know. You wouldn't have to present a whole case. They're already going to have the intuition, the telepathy. So this is, I think, inevitable. But maybe introducing it early on into the perspective of other people's, you know, existence, because they might not have even heard about spirituality. I think some people, they're so much into the business world, spirituality is just something super far removed. But if you showcase an example of what spirituality might look like into the everyday, that almost feels prophetic in a way. That almost feels futuristic. Well, how did you conceive of that future when you were doing this there and I was already here? How did you know what to say at the right time? And I think this is the power of listening to that inner guidance, because your guides, just like you heard that voice inside of you tell this person that they're a commander, like we are always receiving that information, and the more we ascend, the clearer that information comes through. And sometimes it sounds crazy, but when you say it out loud, it makes sense. Oh yeah, we were meant to meet at this hour.
Yeah.
I've absolutely enjoyed our conversation, Sidonie, and I think when we started talking about New Earth, I knew right away that we're going to collaborate on something. And the first version of our conversation that I had in mind was New Earth Lightworkers, but then communication kind of came through, and I feel like we've kind of co-created an episode that both speaks about the Lightworkers and the way we're going to be communicating.
We didn't speak of light language though, but we can do that another time. Yeah, if you like.
Light language is almost an episode in itself, because it's how intricate it is, and also how many different versions are flowing. But yeah, absolutely correct in saying that light work and light language and light mission, they all belong to the same conversation.
It's their language. Yeah. It's a pure language, and filtered by the construct of the language we know. Yeah.
Thank you for joining me on New Earth On.
On.
It's fantastic to meet you. It's fantastic to co-create.
Likewise.
And I'm sure that this is just one of many conversations that we're going to have about the New Earth.
Thank you very much for having me on the show, and on the podcast, I should say. Yeah, and we'll speak again another time. I wanted to ask you before you go, do you feel like you will be part of the New Earth?
I do.
I feel like you will be as well, but I just wanted to know whether you thought that.
I do. I feel like I have an important role that is kept hidden even from me. I feel like I'm supposed to be a little bit like a presidential role, which seems overwhelming when I think about it, because I have shivers when I think about that. Not to say that I cannot hold the power, because I know I've had a lot of power since I was a child. So much resistance against me. I've spoken about this in my YouTube channel, Destiny Swapping. I've had so many friends and partners, family members that have tried to literally swap my destiny with theirs in a way where they've maybe understood 5% of what I'm here to do, and they thought, oh, that's nice, I want that. But it's like, everything has been so meticulously targeted that I can now analyze the types of friendships that I've had and understand what my mission is, because of how much it became obvious at some point, because it's the same patterns all over again, just different people. And I was like, but why are these people talking to me about that or this? And why are they acting that way? Why are they saying this? It just made sense at some point that it was almost like their spirit couldn't contain itself around me. I didn't know anything until I was 30, about 30. And then
Oh,
after
okay.
that, everything started. When I was around 20, that's when I experienced that spiritual uplifting. And I was like embodying more of my consciousness. But at the time, I didn't know anything about New World, maybe because I wasn't supposed to. Then the period between 20 and 30, after a narcissistic relationship, when my consciousness was completely disconnected from me. I mean that in the sense I stopped writing, I stopped anything and everything. I was just in this relationship, super narcissistic. Everything was enabling that narcissism. Then I went to work for 5 years. I was the first person to go, the last person to leave. Weekends, I was working, advancing my creativity, taking up additional tasks until I asked the universe, guide me back home. I'm ready. Help me. Because I realized this is empty. Like, this is not even dark. It's empty. I shouldn't feel the way that I feel right now. I feel like I had a second chance to remember, I feel like the first chance that I had at developing my purpose or my foundation, I failed at it because it was quite early on and I trusted the wrong people, or maybe I just wanted friends. I don't know. The second chance that I got, I really focused on my craft, completely ignored the people. Now I'm understanding it's neither about the people nor the craft. It's about the connection. It's about the purpose, which is bringing everything that I need to share. But it's safe to say that I've had different chapters within the same life that feel like separate lives. And I'm almost 100% certain that I died and I came back, because I had that almost like a channeled message. One of the most surreal messages, I'm going to include it in one of my next books, because I don't even know how to speak about it. It was so surreal. I felt like I was in the subconscious world. People were talking in riddles around me for about a week. And then after that, it was almost like they were warning me, we've sent death after you. People that were my colleagues were speaking in riddles around me to alert me they've sent death after me, or somebody had. And I remember one day, amidst, very troublesome sleep, I woke up and I was shattered. Like, everything was just ache, everything was achy. And I had a spiritual teacher. I had a messenger gave me tickets. Hey, do you want to go to this show? And I went to the show and I actually had a chance to speak to this woman who was a Buddhist teacher, a monk. And I was like, why do I feel like a part of me has died overnight? She's like, that's because it's happened. Now it's the point where you heal.
Great.
Fantastic. Lovely to meet you. Thank you once
Lovely
again.
to meet you too.
May the light be with you. That's probably
with you.
the best way for two light workers to end the
May
conversation.
the force be with you.
May the force be with you.